again, this is this is rotary, so centrifugal force. You need to have freedom of movement. So if we were to, that it does come down to flexibility a little bit, but if we were to set with our feet relatively square, it's going to limit how much my femur can actually turn, how much my hips can turn, and where my femur is actually set. And if I get stuck and I'm not able to turn, I'm either going to put a lot of pressure on my ligaments and joints, or I'm going to use a lot of upper body, and then that becomes really inaccurate because, again, we were talking about how the legs are the power source, right? So by having the feet slightly flared out, it does a couple of things. It gives a little bit of freedom of movement for my hips to pivot a little bit more on the backswing and a little bit more on the follow through. So that's one. The other thing too is when I do that, when I flare, if I do pivot, my weight would tend to go to the outside of my foot. Now it's creating kind of a slide and an instability. So then my upper torso would kind of stay still, and then you start sliding. If I flare it out, so my toes are a little wider than my hips, I can actually pivot and not feel like I'm sliding my hips, because it would be very dramatic if I slid my hips. So now I can go and I can turn. Like if I was trying to pick something up. So if you think about if I was picking something up heavy, right, a kettlebell, a weight ball, whatever you want, and you're throwing it against the wall. If I stand like this and I go like this, I'm going to feel very unstable. Which is if I'm like this and I'm kind of in a ready position, like if you're playing basketball or football or tag or whatever, and you're, little flex in the knees, weight kind of on the balls of the feet, and you're moving, you don't really stand like this, because you know what I'm saying? So this is a little bit more of an athletic position, and it kind of allows a little bit more freedom of movement. Once we get into the swing mechanics of it, then you'll see where the actual stability and the bracing happens in the swing. But as far as setup goes, a great question. Keeps the weight on the inside. I also feel when I flare my feet out, I feel like I can kind of squeeze my knees together, which also helps inhibit and allow the hips to pivot in a little bit more freedom, more free of movement, a little bit more natural. Versus if my knees are out like this, it kind of limits how much I can actually pivot. So if I'm in, I can pivot a lot more. And since this is your stability, then you have to have that slight flare. So that's the reason why.